All right, welcome. Holding by Pirke Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers. As it is known, again, welcome everyone. Holding by Pirke Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, as it is known. We are holding by chapter 2, Mishna 15. Sorry, part 15. Again, holding by Pirke Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, chapter 2, Mishna 15. And this is going to be number 15, right? Part 15. There'll be a part 16, part 17, I'm sure part 18. Right, we're working our way through here. So the Mishnah said, they each said three things. Rabbi Elazar says, let your fellow's honor be as dear to you as your own, and do not anger easily. And that's what we've been speaking about the last number of weeks, is not allowing yourself to get angry easily. We mentioned many times. The Mishnah here does not say never get angry, right? That would be God putting a person in the situation that they can't handle. So the Mishnah here says, do not anger easily, right? So last week we mentioned, or last few weeks, just the first part of this, and that is don't be like the fool with anger lingering. Right, you got a lot of anger. Person got a lot of anger. They may say, I deserve to have a lot of anger. What this person did to me or whatever. Right. So the fool, right? We're saying over here, don't be like the fool who's consumed by it. Right, being consumed by anger. Anger is good, as bad as it is. Being consumed by it, right? Totally being consumed by it, not being able to control it. And letting someone get in your head, right? Any psychologist will tell you, not a psychologist, never played one on TV, right? But the idea is no one should have that kind of power, to be inside of our heads. Now, some will say, people said this, people did that, and did over a long period of time, whatever it may be, all true, right? Maybe it's all true. Very well could be, yeah. And even if it is, it's not something, right? Not something God wants, right? He doesn't want someone to be in our head. It's not what he wants, right? It's not what he desires, not what he's interested. But a person's gonna say, this happened, that happened, the other happened, a million things in between happened. Okay, right? Very true, right? Could be very true. And right, how's that help? Should help. Because regardless of what someone's gone through, does not mean we have to let them get in our head. Right? You're going to say, but, any psychologist will tell you, will tell you that, you got to get it out. You got to get the anger out. Right? We get enough stress in our lives in general. Everyone's got stress. Right? So you can't let that in. You can't let it overcome. And it does. Right? Unfortunately, sometimes it does. We're hurt. We're bothered. We'll question things. Why did this happen? Should never have happened. That could be a lack of emunah. Because, again, a lot of things we don't necessarily understand why it happened. Could be because we did something, but let's say we didn't. All of a sudden, we're caused damage. Right? You got to see the bigger picture, right? As we mentioned many times. So further here, there's an interesting parable. Over here. So we said before, don't be like the fool who's got anger lingering inside because you're consumed by it. Even something that we mentioned, I think, last week, even something that would not require anger. Something that really shouldn't get us angry, which opens up a real Pandora's box here, right? Who's to say it's not to get us angry? Who's to say, right? Someone will rip me to shreds and say, Torah can't tell me when to be angry and not be angry. Torah can't say that. Torah doesn't have a right. I want to get angry, I'll get angry. Torah says, though, right, the Gemara tells us, beginning of Sanhedrin, Even, when a person's angry, they lose themselves. Even if they're standing over the pit of hell, the pit of Gehenna, and they can hear terrible things, people suffering, and who knows what, they're not going to repent. Their anger's still there. Mind-boggling. Mind-boggling idea. That's how bad anger is. That's how bad it is, right? So there are some people that are getting angry about nothing. Seemingly something that shouldn't be important, but that person will tell you. That person will say, clear, who you tell me is not important? Who you telling me I shouldn't get aggravated? God doesn't want us to be aggravated. Victor Miller, a blessed memory, live what the Chofetz Chaim says in duty to the heart, perfect faith. Right? Everything's a test. God is good. Whatever happens, it's good. Got to be thankful. Got to know what to be thankful for. Right? A million things to be thankful for, we mentioned many times. Well, let's see this parable. Very interesting parable. Just like the snake has poison in his teeth, right? Difference of opinion. If a snake bites somebody, right? The Gemara says, if a snake bites somebody, what happens? It inflicts or gives over the poison. And then that animal, whatever it is, will die. Right? Die from the poison. So the difference of opinion, though, where the poison comes. Is it in his teeth? According to some, then when he bites, venom comes out. Right? Automatically. And the snake doesn't have to do anything. Right? Now, very interesting. Before we get to talk about anger, it's interesting in and of itself. A person took a snake. Let's say, Gemara asks the question, a person takes a snake and he puts the snake on someone to bite him. Right? Let's say that person dies. Is the person liable? Is the person liable for killing someone? They say, what do you mean? It's obvious. He put the snake on the person. Right? He made the snake, he put the mouth of the snake on the person. Snake bites, venom goes out, person dies. Right? Let's say. So there's a question here. What's the question? If you tell me snake is in his teeth, the venom is in his teeth. So if the venom's in his teeth, what would I say? I would say that's direct. That 100% is direct. Right? You're putting the snake on the person. That person's gonna die. Right? That person's seemingly gonna die. So that's direct. That 100% is direct. But there's another opinion. The other opinion states that if you put the snake on a person, the venom's not in the teeth. After the snake bites the person, then the venom comes out, not directly in the teeth. That's indirect. If it's indirect, maybe the person's not liable. Right? In order to be liable to kill someone, it's going to be direct. Right? You want to get, a person to get the death penalty, it has to be direct. If it's indirect, right? There are a lot of cases like this. If it's indirect, we're essentially liable, right? Gemara gives a number of examples. Right? One example, you tie a person on a railroad tracks. Now, is the train coming? No. But the train is coming. Eventually, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is, train's coming. This person stuck on the railroad tracks, can't get out. Now, what should happen when the train comes? Flatten him like a pancake. Person will die. That's not necessarily called direct. Why not? You tied him up, he can't go anywhere. You're right. But is death imminent? No. It's not direct. Right? There's a case, let's say, you left, it's relatively hot. Right? So let's say it's, 40 degrees Celsius. It'd be 104, right? 102, 104, whatever it is. You put him directly in the sun, that person's going to die. Right? For sure. That's direct. But what if you put him in the sun, you tied him up, the person can't go anywhere, and it's only 20 degrees Celsius. Right? It's only like 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Is that direct? Indirect. That's indirect. Or you stick them by a dike. The dike's not bursting with water, right? Got a hole in the dike, boom, person drowns. That's kind of direct. If the person's somewhere down the line, indirect, right? So there's a whole question here. Not so straightforward. There are a lot of different issues here. So the question would be, okay, so a person sticks the snake on the person. Now, what's someone going to ask? What's the obvious question? What's the obvious question? You stuck the snake on the person. If you stuck the snake on the person, whether the poison comes from his teeth or the poison comes later, what difference does it make if it's direct or indirect? The person dies from that. That's the obvious thing, right? That's the obvious thing someone's going to say, right? What do I care if it's direct or indirect? Oh, the Gemara makes a distinction. If it's indirect, you didn't do it. You did not do it. You're not liable. I mean, you might be liable according to heaven, but in this world, you're not liable. Why not? Right? What's the simple answer? Because you didn't do it direct. It doesn't matter if the person died or not. You did not do something direct. It came out later. It doesn't matter if it came out 10 seconds later, 5 seconds later. Unless you tell me, according to this, unless you tell me the venom is in the teeth, right? So then you take the snake, you take the teeth, you go, bam, right? Use it like a stapler, right? Bam, he bites the person. So when he bites the person, what's going to happen? Venom goes in direct. Is that any different than taking a gun and shooting him in the head? It shouldn't be any different. That's direct. That would be murder. But the fact is, let's say, there are others that say, no, it doesn't work that way. The venom comes out later. So the venom comes out later. Okay, it's going to take a certain amount of time for the venom to come out. Very good. Even if it's a short amount of time. Is it direct or indirect? Right? If that's indirect, it's not liable. Obviously, it's not the right thing to do. Right? I don't think anyone's going to question that. Right? You're killing the person either way. Right? But Torah looks at it differently. Torah says if it's direct, that's murder. If it's indirect, it's not murder. Again, these cases are complex. A lot of cases like this. God forbid, end of life issues. Right? A doctor once told me that someone goes into hospice. They're going there to die, essentially. Now, they go into hospice. Now, the hospital can't directly kill them. Now, obviously, that would be murder. So what do? So they give them basic nutrients to survive, to live, even though their body's in a weakened state. So they give them a certain amount of nutrients. Problem is, body's in a weakened state. You only give it a certain amount of nutrients, right? Body gets infection, can't fight it. What's the secondary cause of cancer? Pneumonia. Why can't the body fight off pneumonia? The body's in a very weakened state. Because it's in a weakened state, you can't call that murder. It's not murder. It's indirect. They're giving that, if the hospital won't give you any food or drink, any nutrients, that's murder. That's direct. If it's indirect, can't get them. But obviously they know what they're doing. Right? Maybe they will murder people. I don't know. But legally, they got to treat them, to a certain extent. They got to give them some level of nutrients. They don't give them some level of nutrients, they're starving them to death. That's what happened at the beginning of COVID. They didn't know what to do. So a lot of people, they had in isolation, they starved to death. That's how they died. Even if the statistics are skewed and how many people really died from COVID or not, if anyone died from COVID, they had it in their system, let's say, it must have died from that. But there were a number of cases, I don't know what the stats are, but there were a number of cases, at least at the very beginning, people were in isolation. How did they die? Starvation. That's how they died, because they didn't know how to deal with it. They didn't know what they were doing. Okay, so that's more direct. They're not giving them anything. That's more direct. If it's indirect, it's still bad, but it's not murder. You can't charge, you can't get them. According to the Torah, you can't get them. Okay. All right. Again, I'm just setting up something that's a lot more complex. Right? As you can probably see. Now, That being said, whether the venom comes out directly or doesn't come out directly, right? What's the comparison? What's the comparison by anger? Anger, if it's inside of us, what happens by a fool, right? And a lot of us probably in this category, unfortunately. What happens by a fool? By a fool, when does the anger come out? Does the person count to 10? Person think before they react? Usually not. Anger, when does it come out? Usually comes out automatic. That's according to the other opinion, that when a person puts a snake on top of a person, the venom comes out direct. So here, a fool, that's what we're talking about. Don't be a fool with anger lingering, and do not react automatically. Do not make what we call a knee-jerk reaction. Something happens, boom, I have to react. Who says? It happens. I'm not saying by everybody. There are different ways to counter anger in general, but what happens? The person reacts. God does not want you to react. He wants you to be on an equilibrium at all times. So rabbis tell us that, that anger by fools comes out automatically. We don't want to be like fools just to react. But the Gemara even says there are 3 ways to test a person. How they do, 3 things: katso, kiso, and koso. Katso, how they deal with anger. Kiso, how they deal with money, their pocket, literally. And koso, how do they act when they drink. Right? 3 things test a person. So here we're talking about anger. I mean, we don't have to go into these other things, right? Specifically, we're speaking about anger. So if I look at anger, so people know about other people. Let's say especially by friends. They know when something happens how they react. I mean, if they're good enough friends, they'll know how they react. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's not. Right? So they'll know. They'll know over here. Does anger come out automatically? Or does the person not necessarily react? Lets it stir inside, is also not good. But, churns it around, say how they're going to react. I mean, it's better in a certain way. At least you're thinking how you're going to react. But at the same time, what can happen? Person can explode. Either they can explode straight away, or let's say it takes time. They think about it. What's the problem thinking about it too much? Because then you just let it churn in your mind. You let it go on and on and on and on. Person gets angry and angrier. Right? That I would say, is certainly bad. You want to deal with it in some way. If you're thinking about it, you're going to say, well, is it really bad? How should I react? Etc. And you're thinking, what's the proper thing a person who studies Torah, learns Torah should do? Okay, that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. You don't react straight away. What do? You think. Right? You think about, what happened and what should the reaction be? I'm just saying a lot of times maybe we're caught off guard. You're certainly not in control of many things. So, something happens, all of a sudden, you're thrown into a situation. What do you do? What do you do? So you gotta think. We're being tested all the time. By being tested all the time, we should see a pattern, right? We should see a pattern of what we do, in general. And then no matter what happens, okay, a person has to think. If this happens, how are you going to react? If that happens, how are you going to react? If the other thing happens, how are you going to react? And then you have to put into action. It's not enough. Then you got 2 things. One is, okay, something happens. Certain scenario, whatever it is, we'll make it easy. Someone said something obnoxious. Somebody said something against Judaism, against Jews, something anti-Semitic. How are you going to react? What would your normal reaction be? Right? So So it's not always so easy. Why? First of all, things happen beyond our control. So if they happen beyond our control, we're not ready for it. But you have to be ready for it. No matter what happens, we have to be ready. We have to be prepared. So how do you do that? What's the best way to do it? Think of different scenarios the person can go through. What's the other problem? Other problem is we get distracted. Yeah, we're doing something else. We're totally doing something else, and this thing comes up. Goes to to the first part. You're not really prepared. For it to happen now. But the idea is, even if it did happen, I have to think. Right? There are two things here. What's my reaction? What should my reaction be? Don't need, hours thinking about this. What should the reaction be? How do I see the bigger picture in such a situation? But then you got the hard part. Then you got the most difficult part. What's the most difficult part? Most difficult part is now I have to put in action. Now I have to take what I went through. I have to take the situation. I have to take, okay, now this is going to be my reaction. This is what I'm going to do. And if this is what I'm going to do, I have to put it into action. What's the problem? What's the obvious problem with that? We're not, first of all, we might be overtired. Second of all, we might not be thinking straight. We might be distracted. Could be a million things that potentially happen that do not grant us the right reaction. Or, let's say, I'll say even better. What do we use the example? Someone said something, let's say anti-Semitic, or let's say, if someone's Jewish, a Jewish person said something, against Orthodox Jews or whatever. Right? What's the first thing you want to do? You want to react. You want to say it's not true, and right? You're gonna give out all these examples and all these things, But what's the reality? The reality is this person doesn't have a leg to stand on. We look at them like they're, one way to look at it is like they have a 25 IQ. So what am I getting upset about? People say it's painful. You're right. We've spoken about this a lot. True. Person, bottom line, person has to be prepared at all times. At all times. For anything that could happen. What does the evil inclination do? He discombobulates you, makes you think about other things, makes you, fly off the handle because you're going through who knows what. And then it's like bam, 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 and then this thing happens. It's not like one thing, kind of like, Hamas and Amalek and all, and all of them put together. How do they fight? And everyone's seeing now in the media, they're fighting, they're fighting with human shields, right? They're fighting through hospitals. They're fighting through, they're hitting people when they can't defend themselves. And then these cowards, when they get caught, I'm not gonna say God should have mercy on them. They're like babies, for goodness sakes. When they get caught. There was a story. Someone was the head of a prison here, a woman. She had to deal with a lot of these terrorists, and she had to deal with this terrorist who was basically behind the whole thing that happened on October 7th. This person hiding in some tunnel somewhere. But he got out. He was able to be freed with 1,000 terrorists for Gilad Shalit. Right? Anyone remembers Gilad Shalit was a soldier. Soldiers held captive. And, his parents made a whole thing, with the government and to the world to get him released. And they got him released. Right? They ended up getting released after months. They got him released for 1,000 terrorists. They said, we've never given away terrorists with blood on their hands. Plenty of terrorists, blood on their hands. That's what they did. So this is an explicit Mishna. Tractate Gittin. You never do this. Right? Totally forbidden according to Jewish law in general. Totally forbidden. No matter what the anguish is, it's forbidden. It's forbidden. Why? Because they, the non-Jews know, and this is what we're talking about, right? The non-Jews know if they kidnap people, then they're going to ransom them. And the Jews are going to come and pay. So they're going to keep doing it if we keep paying, right? Whether it's money or terrorists. So you had one Jew, 1,000 terrorists came out. 1,000. Right? And most of them went back to doing what they were doing. Well, some of them ended up getting killed and, recently, and this maggot sitting somewhere, I don't know, somewhere in some bunker somewhere. But that wasn't the point. Point was, this guy had, whatever. He was in jail. Should have been in jail for life. Yeah, for a lot of things. A lot of things he masterminded and organized and different things. So what happened? He had to have brain surgery. He had all these, he's having these migraines and different things. They checked him out. And he had a tumor. So this woman, I get a number of conversations with this guy. And, they saved him. Saved his life. Now, good question. Halachically, they have an obligation to it or not. Right? We're not going to go there. But the point was, why do I mention it? Because this woman, interrogated this person and, spoke to him a number of times. Person, obviously was afraid to die, is scared out of his wits. He did other things also, not himself, protected himself, had other people do his dirty work, other things, whatever it was. He's a coward, essentially a coward, big wuss, as we would say. But guess what? He got out and he masterminded this whole thing. Yeah, so anger is a way, so Gemara says, anger is a way to test a person. You see how they act. Now a lot of times, or whatever, I don't know what the stats are, but there will be times a person's under severe duress. Different things. Going through a lot of different things at the same time. Or maybe it's even one, but it's pretty big. Yeah, then something else happens. Now, when something else happens, it's like overboard. It's like brain overload. How much can a person take? So something happens, it could be minor, right? Could be minor. Even something we mentioned over the last few weeks, even something would not require anger. But why they get angry on it? Because they're under duress. They're under other stress. Now, there are some people that just get angry because they get angry. They're not able to control it. Any little thing angers them. That's bad. Why? Because someone here mentioned, and will answer the question, right? And that is, why does Hashem anger more than any other thing? Right? Is anger the feature of idolatry? Could be. But what's the main thing? What's the main thing about when someone's angry? They lose control. They absolutely lose control. Now, it depends what level of anger. But that's the problem. The problem is when a person gets angry, you don't speak to them. Right? What all the Musar books say. All the books of ethics. That's what it says. Do not allow, you don't speak to someone when they're angry. Doesn't say what level. Doesn't say they have to be burning angry and whatever. It says you never speak to someone when they're angry. Now, why is that? What's the simple reason? Simple reason is because they're not in control. That's the simple reason. They've absolutely lost control. So if they've lost control, you're speaking to someone who's not in their right mind. They've lost it. Someone who's lost it, you can't rationalize with them. Take a child throwing a tantrum. Yeah. Child's yelling and screaming this and that. You try the best of your ability to diffuse it. What's bothering you? How can I help you? Why are you screaming? Different things. Is a 3-year-old rational? No. They want something. My brother took something from me. I want something to eat, whatever. Sometimes, they don't necessarily express themselves. They just scream. They just totally scream till they finally calm down. Then once they finally calm down, you can speak to them. Even a 3-year-old, even a 4-year-old, you can ask, what's the matter? What can I help you with? What are you screaming about? At the very beginning, you can never hear what they say because they're too busy screaming. And they're too busy getting angry. For any number of reasons, it doesn't matter. And even though it has to be something important. There are times it'll happen, many times, because they're overtired. It doesn't matter. You got to try and diffuse the situation when the kid's not screaming. The kid might not be a good example because he's lost in his tantrum, whatever's going on. But are they any different, in general than an adult? I gotta say, come on, adults more sophisticated, this and that. But the bottom line is, what's the comparison between the two? They're not in control. They can't hear anything. A kid might throw things around, this, that, till eventually they calm down. I mean, an adult could do the same thing at different level. Right? But here we're talking about where you've lost control. That's why it's so bad. There are a lot of things God hates really bad. That's one of them. Idolatry, Torah speaks a lot about. Right? Torah speaks a lot against idolatry. Torah speaks a lot against immorality. Is anger compared to idolatry? It can be. Right? I think a number of places it is. Right? But it's not necessarily because, now the person's so angry, he's going to worship idols. Right? The main thing is they're out of control. They're absolutely out of control. So when a person is absolutely out of control, you can't deal with them. In general. There are people out there say things. They say things out of anger. I had someone, whatever, I still haven't answered them because there's just no point. I've spoken about it a few times. Person went on a whole rant about what's going on. What's going on here in Israel, and it's government's fault, and it's and it's the right wing's fault, and it's the Orthodox fault, and everyone together, and this is what happens if the left was in power. Sure, right? A whole rant. Now, if I would have been there in person, I would have let them talk. Let them go on. I would have said, "Okay, you finished?" I'd be very respectful. Let them get it all out of their system because you're not going to answer in the middle. Right? Let them get it out of their system. And then say, okay, you finished? Yeah, okay, can we get to the facts? Can we see what the facts are? Well, I got answered by somebody, it's the same person. Right? Went on and on and on. And I said, okay. I heard them out, didn't interrupt. So I said, so, you have any sources for this? Maybe somewhere in the Talmud says, maybe you got, Midrash, you got something. All they want to do is hammer me about being ultra Orthodox Jew. Okay. Yeah. That's what my heart says. That's what my heart tells me. Okay. Is that rational? What do we say every day in the Shema? Third paragraph of the Shema. Say it twice a day. Even people say it before they go to sleep. You don't go after your heart. It's forbidden to go after your heart and after your eyes. The heart can deceive a person. Eyes can deceive a person. Because what's in a person's heart? All kinds of feelings. Some good, some bad. We also misrepresent things. Somebody says something. You want to, I heard a great psychologist say this. Especially it's good for marriage. You have a discussion, person has a discussion with their spouse, and you let one of the spouses speak. And then, let's say for a few minutes, and the other spouse answers. Right? Or says, they have to reflect. They have to say, okay, according to what you just said, you said this, that, and the other thing. So you must have meant like this and this, right? You want to reflect and say back to them what they said to make sure that's what they meant. Some people say, no, it's not what I meant, but this is what you said. Right? So, you can do it in a way where it doesn't get offensive. Sometimes it get offensive. And then there could be arguments. But the whole point of reflection, even if a person's in an argument with someone else, it doesn't be a spouse, but even when you're discussing something with somebody else, you can reflect on what they say and say, did you just say this, that, and the other thing? So even before I read this book, it's very interesting. I had someone I had a phone conversation with, and they made a statement, really, let's just say below the belt statement. I'm not going to say what it was. Something very, very below the belt. And I said, did you just say X, Y, Z? I want to make sure my ears heard it. Yeah, they said, oh, we never said that. I said, my ears just heard it. You just said X, Y, Z. They said, no, we didn't. They denied it. Totally denied it. Caught them in a total lie. Total lie. They said, we didn't say that. They didn't say, no, we meant this. That's another thing. A person hears something, they jump the gun, they misinterpret what they say. Or they catch them and say, can you clarify that? Sometimes it's very hard to do that because you're already going 10 steps ahead. You're rip-roaring mad, but the person didn't say it. I got caught with this years ago. I made a statement, never should have said it. And I made a statement, I'm not going to say what the statement was, but I made a statement saying, I feel like X, not I was X. Big difference. I said, I feel like X. All they heard was X. They said, but you said this. And the conversation goes the same way every single time. It hasn't come up in a long time. But that conversation goes the same way. But you said this. No, I didn't. I said, I feel like X. That's a big difference. Yeah. Statement should have been said. Doesn't matter. Clarified what was meant, but that's it. Person heard what they wanted to hear. They said, but you said X. So that's good reflection. The only problem is I didn't say it. I never said it. I said, I feel like X. Damage been done. Yeah, so you got to be careful what we say. No question. But it's not a bad thing before you, jump off the rails. And you start yelling at this person for what they said and how offensive it was, make sure that's exactly what they said and what they meant. If you tell me it's very explicit what they said, okay? Right? Sometimes we hear something, but we don't hear exactly what they said. Right? We don't hear it. We hear like one word or two words, but they might have meant something else. Now, someone's going to tell me, no. I heard X, Y, Z. That's what they said. That's what they meant. It's very strange. I'm going to say, yeah, I didn't really mean that. It's Webster's, 8th definition. Forget Webster's 8th definition. Or they'll say, no, I was just kidding. Like, why are you getting so bent out of shit? No, I was just kidding. Don't worry about it. But it's another way out of it. Another way out of it is to say, no, either they'll tell you you're too sensitive, could be, right? But they could be telling you just to, make the situation better, because now they realize they said something kind of offensive. They can say, no, don't worry about it. I was just kidding. Now, I was just kidding can have a lot of ramifications, right? Especially in Jewish law, right? Someone makes a statement that I did this or I did that, or I sold this, and they agreed. They said, I never agreed. I was just kidding when I said it. I never meant it should be like this and like this, but you said it. So there are ramifications. There are halachic ramifications. Got to be careful. So it could be someone can get out of a situation by saying, yeah, I was just kidding. But, there are times it's not going to help. The rabbis throw that argument out. What do you mean just kidding? How does just kidding help me in this situation? So the main point over here is that anger can be pretty bad because a person loses control. Right? Person loses control. The Torah never wants a person to lose control. To the extent, and I'll tell you how far it goes, even to the extent where God forbid we have someone to mourn for, right? A mother, father, sister, brother, God forbid a child or a spouse, right? Any of them die before they get buried, right? Before they get buried, you have to rip your shirt and you make the blessing Dayana Emet. The God, source of all blessing, created the world, is the true judge. Very hard blessing to make. Very, very hard blessing to make, because that person's, lying there right in front of you, and you have to make the blessing saying God did this. God is the true judge. Very hard blessing to make. So the Gemara does not say, wow, you're in such a rattled state, and you're lacking over here because the person's lying in front of you, the person passed away. It doesn't matter how. The person could have died at 98 and just, didn't wake up. Okay. Lived the ripe old age. I'm not saying where it happened tragically. Still, you got to make that blessing. So the rabbis could have said, how are you going to make such a blessing? Can't make such a blessing. You're in a lot of pain. You got that person right in front of you. You're in a tremendous amount of pain. Very good. But even when you're in pain, you got to acknowledge where it comes from. You got to say, the God, the source of all blessing, guess what? This is what he did. He took this person from me. Had the angel of death do it. Well, that person, okay, that was their time. That was their time to go. It makes it easier in a certain way when they're much older. Okay, they lived a good life, this, that. I'm not even talking about where they suffered. Let's say they just didn't wake up one day. They didn't wake up one day. Or, something happened and, they died straight away. Or shortly thereafter. You say, couldn't say goodbye. Okay, there are other issues, fine. But at the end of the day, you have to acknowledge where it comes from. You have to acknowledge it comes from God. God is the judge, the true judge. So you could say, how could we make such a blessing? How could they obligate the Jewish people to make such a blessing? It's too hard. That person sitting right there, lying right there. You got to acknowledge where it comes from. You make a blessing over something, God forbid, bad, and then something good. But we have, in the future, we'll see things that we think are bad are really good. I mean, death is not, never should have been. We don't necessarily look at death as something bad. Death is just a transition. The transition for the soul to get judged. Hopefully, doesn't have to suffer too much, gets its total reward in the next world. It's a transition. Doesn't mean the person just goes 6 feet under and nothing happens. And they die like a dog and they go poof, there's another world. There's a whole spiritual world. We don't see, we don't fathom. Right? We don't fathom per se. My Rebbe would say, I've never met anyone been in that world and come back. Okay. Right? That doesn't mean it's not true. Totally doesn't mean it's not true. But what's the idea? The idea is, it's not finite. This world's just temporary. We're going to see one day, I don't know, about 94, 95, that this world is just a portico, like that word. The portico, an antechamber to the next world. But you have to go through this world, right? You cannot get to the next world if you're not living in this world. And this world, a world of struggle, a world of difficulty. No question about it. Ramchal says in Derech Hashem, says in Path of the Just, we're in this world to toil, to struggle. Okay. You can't have a portion of the next world if you're not here. You got to go through the struggle. You got to merit it. It's not going to be granted to you in one shot. In general, there's a story. Someone, Rebbe Lezer ben Dordaya, the most despicable person. Yeah, most despicable person. And basically, he dies in repentance. And the Gemara says, Rabbi Lezer ben Dordaya is welcome to the next world. What do you mean, Rabbi? Guy was scum of the earth 2 minutes before. 2 minutes before, this guy was scum of the earth. Now you want to tell me, not only does he have a portion of the world to come, but you want to tell me that he's called Rabbi? No, come on. It's a little bit much. The Rebbe, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Reb Judah the Prince, the one who organized all the Mishna, put them together, said some people get their Olam Haba, their portion of the next world, in 1 second, and some people it takes their whole lives. Now, why does that happen? We don't know. But that's the power of repentance. That 100% is power of repentance. Even someone, gives us a little bit of hope. Here you're talking about someone, in my language, scum of the earth, absolute scum of the earth. God allowed his repentance, not just allowed it, but his repentance was so strong, even though he was scum of the earth 2 seconds before. and then he died in pure repentance, God said he's welcome in the next world. He's called Rabbi also. Right? If we would have been God, put on my funny George Burns glasses, my funny mustache, if we were God over here, and this person repents, okay, very good. Repented. He's going to get a portion directly in the next world and called Rabbi to boot. I don't know, it's a little bit much, but God looks at the world differently than we do. But think about it. Get this question all the time. How do I know I truly repented? Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. All these questions, and I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I should be better. You're right, we all should be better. Take scum of the earth. Take Mr. Scum of the earth here, Eliezer ben Dordaya, and he has a portion of the world to come, and he's called Rabbi because of 1 second of repentance. You got to say, what? But it came from the depth of his heart, and it was pure repentance. How can I say I have great repentance? Okay, we can make that argument. Let's say, though, what we've done in our lives is 10 times, 1,000,000,000 times better than Rebbe Eliezer ben Dordai. Yeah? 1,000 times better than him. Okay, so we repented better, we repented worse, whatever it may be. We shouldn't have a portion of the world to come compared to him? I say, no. The whole point of the Gemara is, true repentance came from the depth of his heart. Okay. But that uproots every last thing he did prior. So what does Reb Judah the Prince say? Rabbi Judah the Prince says some people can get their own hop in 1 second, in one shot. It's a huge thing. Some people it takes, he said, a lifetime. Okay. But that's the power. That 100% is the power. So the whole issue over here is God wants, even in the darkest of times, you have to know how to react. You have to know what to do. So I'll tell you a scary thing. Before October 7th, my Rebbe spoke 3 times on Chol Moed, on the intermediate days of Chol Moed, before Simchas Torah. And each time he told the following story. That during the war, so he's living in England during the war, when England was getting bombarded like no tomorrow, and we're talking about World War II. Bombs are flying day in and day out. And it was Simchas Torah, right before Simchas Torah. The yeshiva students in the yeshiva went up to Rav Moshe Schneider, the head of the yeshiva, of blessed memory, and they said, listen, we hear reports what's going on. Our family's probably, totally murdered, gassed, whatever. How can we get up and sing on Simchas Torah? How can we dance with the Sefer Torah, with the Torah scroll? Sing all these songs and, dance all night and all this. Our parents are probably dead. Our siblings are probably dead. Whole family probably wiped out. So Moshe Schneider, blessed memory. Well, now, think about it. You're talking about very dark days. Word's getting out what's going on. Jews being slaughtered by the millions. Yeah. There's an obligation on Simchas Torah and on Sukkot in general. It's a day of great joy. It's a time of great joy. So, you got the water libation ceremonies going on, in Jerusalem in the temple and like all these great things, all this great joy. But now you feel like a piece of dirt. You don't feel like singing and dancing. Look how many people are dying and look how they're dying. Right? So it's a good question. How could God force you to be, happy when you feel like nothing, right? You feel like a piece of dirt. That's a good question, right? But what was his answer? His answer was that Hitler, Yamach Shemoy V'Zichro, may his name be brought out, may rot wherever he is. Ramon Schneider said he can take our bodies, he can't take our souls. He can do whatever he wants to our bodies. He can't take our souls. So Rebbe says, after he said that, Simchas Torah was a different Simchas Torah. They all got up, they sang, they danced, like you can't imagine. Now, there are two things here. I mean, it's really one thing here, right? But we'll break it up. First of all, these people, these yeshiva students, tremendous pain. Tremendous pain. And if they wouldn't have felt like dancing and God's going to seriously punish them, right? So what's the answer? This is an obligation. You got to forget it. You got to forget about the background noise. Forget about what's going on, right? Even if someone, let's say, died on Shabbos, can't be sad. You're not allowed to be sad on Shabbos. But the person died this day. You're right. Person died. So, I sort of heard almost firsthand, October 7th, what was going on before Shabbos got out. So, kind of hard to be in a joyous mood when you know everything's going on, but that's the obligation. That is the obligation. Now, so even in a time when a person's in pain, when there's time to be happy, you got to forget about the pain somehow. You gotta get it out of your mind. You gotta somehow, control your mind over here. But that's not the most mind-boggling thing. I mean, that's really the answer. That's really the answer to that. The mind-boggling thing is that my Rebbe said this story 3 times. He spoke this story 3 times before it even happened, before the massacre happened. 3 times. You couldn't think of anything else to speak about on Sukkot? I mean, he wrote about Sukkot like one of the first people more than 50 years ago, 60 years ago, to put out a book on all the holidays. People followed him after that, but he had these books, classics, everybody learns them. Everybody in yeshivas learns them. He could have found something else to speak about on Sukkot. Any other topic? And then he said, I've been screaming about, something imminent being, happening. And what can I do? It's like I was speaking to the wall. So people told me after this, and the recordings came out and different things. People said, I didn't know he was a prophet. I know he had prophecies. He told me, prophecies only in the hands of, in this generation, little children and imbeciles. This is divine inspiration. This is Ruach HaKodesh, one of the lower forms of prophecy. Right? So people were telling me this, I never knew. I said, you should ask me that 20 years ago. I said, I would have told you 20 years ago we had this divine inspiration from different things that he told me that seemingly no possible way could know. According to nature. No possible way. Right? I've heard about other, great rabbis of the generation also, like certain things, not possible for them to know in this world. They have to have some form of divine inspiration. Yeah, that was mind-boggling. You want to tell me he said it after the fact, okay, so no big deal. Anyone could have said that. That doesn't make him, have divine inspiration. But the fact that he said it 3 times, told the same thing 3 times. They spoke a 4th time on Simchas Torah itself when sirens were going on. Okay. But the fact that before anything happened, if I would have gone to see him speak, which I wanted to, I didn't get a chance to do it, and he told over that story, that's the first thing I would have thought. Why is he telling this now? Why is he mentioning it now of all times? Nothing's going on. It's quiet. So to speak. Haven't been any terrorist attacks. Everything's quiet. He had some things here and there, but nothing major. But he spoke about it 3 times before. It's a mind-boggling thing. Why did he specifically speak about that? Because, he felt inside something bad was going to happen. Something really bad. But he's been saying it for months, desecration of Shabbos in Israel, other things going on, he always says. Comes out the same every time. Not worried about Hamas, not worried about Hezbollah. God will take care of them. I'm worried about Jews in Israel that sin. That's what I'm worried about. I'm not worried about anything else. Because when you're in the palace of the king and you're messing around and you sin, it's 10 times worse. If you do it outside of Israel, it's also bad. Very true. You do it inside of Israel, 10 times worse. 10 times worse. And, we can't afford that in this country. Can't afford it because it's a miracle we're here. It's, there was just an attack not far from where I live the other day, Thursday. Yeah. Place I go through every day. Right? Whatever. There's a checkpoint there. Some Arabs came from Hebron, got out of the car, started shooting people. One person, I think, was killed, a bunch of people injured. They took care of all the terrorists. They shut down the place for hours because one terrorist got away. Whatever. The people stuck in traffic there, whatever. What's there to, without getting into politics there, what's there to stop that? What in the world is there to stop that? They got out of the car and started shooting. How they got in, okay, it's a good question. But whatever. Someone's got, they're not letting really Arabs in too many places today, right? But nonetheless, if they have a work permit, they get a proper visa, whatever it is, they can get in. Is there any way to stop it logically? A number of years ago, the whole thing, people going on buses mentioned that before. And all of a sudden it stopped because the army said we stopped it. Yeah, we infiltrated different gangs, different things, and whatever. They're able to stop it. It stopped because God wanted to stop. But what's stopping these maggots sending thousands of people every day if they're allowed in legally for them to get on buses and do other things? What's to stop them? I hope no one's listening. Oh, no Arabs are listening here. Yeah. What's to stop them? There's only one thing stopping them. That's Avinu Shabbat the Father in heaven. Nothing to talk about. The Torah learning going in here, that's protecting us. Because otherwise, in theory, we could be on our knees. Could be on our knees. I just saw something earlier. Someone put up from the beginning of the war. How many rockets have been fired? It's like, I don't know, 5,000 or whatever. And now, recently it's only been a couple hundred. Right? So now they're scrambling. They killed a lot of people. All right, the army killed a lot of people. Got rid of a lot of things. It hasn't stopped fully. Right? But what's the claim? What's the claim? The claim is the army's doing it. It's mop-up work. I shouldn't say mop-up work. They're going in, trying to find the terrorists, different things. Different things. And they're uncovering all these, especially this hospital, whatever, covering all these RPGs and, all these weapons and different things. They took out a whole bunch of posts where they're shooting these missiles. Okay. They're not saying, oh, God did it. God helped them. They're saying this the army did. See, this is the problem. Problem is, it's Gaiva. Being conceited, saying, oh, we're doing everything. We're the ones doing everything. Take God out of the picture. But the point is, if you see in the background what should have happened, it would have been 10 times worse. We're in a massive slaughter. Iran was supposed to get involved. People were supposed to come in the north. It's the center of the country, everything at once. It would have been an absolute disaster. This was pretty bad. Worst incident since World War, since the Holocaust. How many Jews died? Right? Made 9/11 look like nothing. 3,000 died compared to Israel. Would have been 50,000 because of the numbers. We're living on miracles here. Miracle. I don't think there's any question. It's not the power of the army. Because you see certain, you see things happen. How can you stop it? How is it possible, according to nature, to stop it? Certain things. No way to stop it. The army say, we got intelligence report, we got this, we got that. Someone's legal to come in the country, take a whole bunch of them, go different places. Can't stop it. There's no way to stop it. God, if God's not protecting us, and the power of Torah is not protecting us, we're dead ducks. We're sitting ducks. Yeah. They say hopefully it gets better before it gets worse, but before Messiah comes, it seems it's going to get a lot worse. God forbid. You got to remember, though, it's God in control. He's the one calling the shots. That's always the mantra. It's always the mantra. He's the one in charge. He's the one in charge, no question. But here we don't have any, we don't have any wiggle room. You got a lot of things going on that are bad. Payback, serious payback. Yeah. So, back to our topic here. We have to be in good. Oh, how to get off topic and speak about that, because even when things are hard, and things seem impossible, there are times God's going to say, forget about that. Forget about that. You got to be happy. You can't be sad on Shabbos. Person's going to say, how is that possible? Knowing what's going on, knowing people have family members, that are out there fighting. People have, God forbid, parents of hostages or siblings of hostages. I mean, can imagine. People probably don't sleep. How could they sleep? How can they pray? How can they make blessings, different things? Because that's their obligation anyway. No one said life is easy. Yeah, life can be very difficult. You always got to be in control. That's the point. You have to have a proper equilibrium. If you don't have a proper equilibrium, any little thing can take a person off. And that's it. That's why anger is so bad. That's my short, long answer. Because you're not in control. Even when a person drinks, also it depends how much you drink. So the question is, what comes out of your mouth? What do you say? How do you react to others? How do you deal with others? Because you have to be in control. A person can always say, it's a good excuse. The person's not really that drunk. Tell someone off and other things, which is forbidden. But they can always say, no, I had no idea what I was saying. I was drunk. I mean, it's not an excuse. But if, a person really hasn't drank that much, they could do that. Don't take my ideas here. You could do that. Tell someone off this and that, and just blame on the fact that I had no idea what I was talking about. Really get it off your chest, get it out of your system. Beautiful. Probably, you just say, well, I don't know what I was saying. I was drunk. I was in control. God wants you in control. That's why anger is so bad. He wants you to be in control at all times. Is that too much to ask? The person will say, it depends what. It depends what happens. But if you see the bigger picture, you live, the Chovos HaLevavos, what he says in Duties of the Heart, you got to work at it. You definitely have to work at it. But again, you have to make a plan. You have to know what triggers. You have to know how to answer what triggers. You have to be in control. God does not want you to see you out of control. That's why the Mishna says, right? The commentaries say, when a person's angry, you don't speak to them. It doesn't say what level of anger they are. Oh, they're only a little bit angry. It doesn't say that. It says when they're angry in general. Anger in general means you're not in control. And even when things are hard and things feel, a person feels, can't deal with life and this is hard and the other thing's hard. God says, I don't really care. You got to pray. I don't really care. You got to make blessings. I don't really care. You got to keep Shabbos, even if it's hard. So how do you change your mentality? How do you go into Shabbos? That Shabbos for a lot of people was very hard. I'm not even talking about people in the South. People had 10 sirens. We had 10 sirens where I live. Hearing booms all over the place. Totally unexpected, out of nowhere. Was it disconcerting? Oh, yeah. Was it scary? Sure it was. But at the end of the day, you sit at the table, you have your meal. Okay, siren goes off, you run into the sealed room. Whatever. But, you're not allowed to get frazzled on Shabbos. You're not allowed to be scared in general. That's not what God wants. Oh, but this happened. Okay. Think of that. How's a person work on themselves and control emotion like that? These are things you got to work on. Everybody's got to work at them. Whatever the character trait is, some are easier than others. When the bombs were going off and people were inside in bomb shelters and, in London during World War II, there were 2 people still learning the base measures, my Rebbe and his Rebbe. They weren't affected. Why weren't they affected? They had an unbelievable amount of emunah, an unbelievable amount of faith and belief in God. And as Ramosha Schneider, blessed memory, said, every missile has its place. Every missile has its address. I'll say that. Every missile has its address. Now there you could say, places are getting bombed left and right. Yeah, much more dangerous situation. Okay. Right? So you don't know, you got to be smart also. So, unless you have unbelievable faith. Here's a different thing. Depends where you are. Siren goes off. You live in the south. You got 15 seconds. 15 seconds before impact. Right? In Tel Aviv, these other places, you got about a minute. Maybe a minute and a half. And sirens only go off, by the way, when it's going to hit something. When they see it's going to hit something. If it's going to just hit a field or some open area, sirens don't go off. A few weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, I was eating lunch. All of a sudden, there's no siren. All of a sudden, we hear boom, 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 like relatively close. Like 3, 4, like significant booms. That was it. Ran in, didn't hear a siren, right? Ran into the sales room. Went to see what was going on. They hit like 20 minutes away. Half an hour away. But the boom was so strong, but it hit open field. I mean, it's miraculous. Most of these things hit nothing. I mean, the impact is like, it's unbelievable. But, relatively speaking, they don't hit anything. All these rockets. I mean, I'm not saying it never does. The building's been hit in Ashkelon and Tel Aviv. But most of them either get shot down or hit nothing, which is, even if the Patriots hit out 80%, 90%, think about it, you still have 10%. Let's say 10% of missiles. Why a lot of them shoot, they shoot them in the center of the country because there's a lot more space to hit. They don't necessarily shoot them where I am because there are first of all, there are a lot of open places. And second, it's not as populated. And second of all, a lot of Arabs around, number of Arab villages around. So they're not going to necessarily shoot their own people. Yeah, I mean, they could. They don't really care, right? But the odds of them hitting something, around the area where I live is like very slim. Very, very slim. It can happen. I'm not saying no. It can happen. Yeah, but, that's the greatest protection. It's Torah. Saint Tehillim. That's the greatest protection. The fact that these things happen, you have thousands of missiles and they're barely hitting anything, I mean, it's pretty miraculous. No question. No question. So anyway, God wants you to be in control. Anger is something where you're not in control. You lose yourself. You absolutely lose yourself. Now, all right, let me see this few question here. One is affected by your surroundings, right? Rivka was born in a wicked environment and wasn't affected. How's that possible? Asa born in righteous people grew up wicked. Very good. Very good question. How does it work? So any of us came out of either secular Jew, became religious, or someone comes out of Christianity. Yeah. Isn't it a miracle any of us are here? Forget you're listening to me. That might be a miracle for me. Anyone wants to listen. Yeah. Isn't it a miracle because everyone else is brain dead? When I was in my early 20s or my late teens, I came to a conclusion. I was at one of the top universities in America. Yeah, I came to a conclusion. And the conclusion was that I have to check out quote unquote real Judaism, Orthodoxy. See what Orthodox is. I see what I'm, what conservative movement and all that, what it's not worth. And all the lies and different things. Or the whole world is just mad. It's just a messed up world. I'm talking more than 30 years ago, more. So, when I was a late teenager, I was like, this world is seriously messed up. Even around my peers, when I was in high school or in university, I'm like, how can these people act like animals? So we know intelligence does not breed morality. We understand that. They don't have an anchor, right? You go on a boat, no motor, throw your rudder overboard, you're in the middle of the ocean. What happens? Wherever the wind takes you, that's where you go. You're not in control, right? You don't have an anchor. You don't have something, you don't have a base over here. If you don't have Torah, what are you going to go according to? What your heart tells you, what your heart tells you, what your mind tells you. But what's that based on? It's based on something you read, something you heard, right? People are not great thinkers today. Definitely not. So the fact that anyone who grows up in a bad environment, Yeah. Parents are bad. The environment's evil. Right? Let's understand. Right? Let's ask a little bit different. Avram sends Eliezer. It says, don't take a woman. Don't take a woman from. Don't take a woman from Canaan. Right? Do not. They're pretty bad. They are pretty bad. Only take from my family. Right? Go back to my family. Very good. Was his family any great sheikhs? I mean, Ovdei Vodazar, among other things. But that family was better than the women of Canaan. So that's think about that. Obviously, there are the worst of the worst. Bad enough, they come from Canaan, and the immorality there and other things, just the evilness. My family's not as bad. Say, Basul did tshuva. Rivka's father, okay, but still grew up in that environment. Yeah. So, a general question would be, we live in a messed up society. Totally messed up society. So whether it's now, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, there are plenty of people coming back to Judaism as secular Jews before the craziness of what was going on today about LGBTQ and all that. Well before. You had people searching for truth, backpackers, this, that, all over. But they were thinking, that today, but they still went through similar things. Their whole environment was messed up. Totally messed up. Right? So, my conclusion was either, I have to check out the truth, what I think the truth is, or like society's messed up and I got to go see a shrink. I may have to go see a shrink anyway. Yeah, that was my conclusion. And I was among the, quote unquote, the brightest of the brightest. Well, obviously we see today in Ivy League schools and other schools as well. The brightest of the brightest are big time anti-Semites. Big time anti-Semites. And not only that, they want every single Jew to die. That's pretty bad. Bunch of thugs, bunch of punks, whatever. That's educational. We've spoken about that. Education does not breed morality. Yeah. How does anybody come out of it? The only way someone comes out of it is the fact, as we said many times, the Gemara says that if a person wants to go in the right direction, God will help them. If a person wants to go in the wrong direction, God will not stop them. So if a person, even if they come up in a messed up environment, family or the environment in general, how is it possible, not just for Rivka, for anybody? See, the fact that she's able to come out of this environment and take over Sarah's place and marry Yitzhak, you got to say that's miraculous. But think about it. She put that in the world to be able to fight against her environment. Same thing by Abraham. Right? Remember, Torah calls him Avraham HaIvri. Why Ivri? Say, Abraham the Jew. Wasn't Jewish yet. He wanted to tell me he kept the entire Torah before it was given. Okay, the whole discussion what that means. But he wasn't Jewish yet. What does Ivri mean from the other side? Abraham was on one side of the world. Everyone else had idolatry, right? Everyone had their pocket God. Here's Bob. Don't leave home without him. Everyone had their pocket God. Everyone was worshiping idols. Idol worship, huge. Way back. I mean, still pretty big today also. Certainly, outside of the West. Outside of the Western world. Still very big. I mean, even telling Christianity is idolatry, very true. Right? But still pretty big. But it doesn't have the same attraction it did, way back. Regardless, anyone who's in that environment, it's a miracle anyone gets out of it. But the truth is, someone can come out of it if they want truth. If they want truth, right? The Gemara says God will help you. God will put people in your way in order that you should get help to get to the right place you need to go. It could take years. It could take months, right? I don't have any simple answers, right? It could take time, but if a person really deep down wants the right thing and they want to go in the right path, God is going to help them. If, like the majority of people in the world, they don't care, they want to go on the wrong path, God does not stop them. He gives them free will. He doesn't have to stop them, right? So now you're asking, okay, well, one part of the question is, how was she not affected? Because she wanted truth. She wanted absolute truth. So God helped her. God made her strong in her beliefs. Put her in contacts, and she's going to be, the mother of the Jewish people. Even though, she had Asa. So let's go to the second part. How is it possible that Asa grew up to righteous parents? So how does someone go off today? Someone has righteous parents. Someone has, from family. So today, a lot of different factors going on. Could be, there's, marital issues by the parents. Could be the person struggles. What do you call it? Person struggles, in school, so to speak, and they fall behind. They fall through the cracks. A lot of things. A lot of things can happen. It's not usually philosophical here. Not usually. So, next week's Parsha of Vayishlach. So Esav comes with 400 people, 400 men. Now, what does Yaakov do? When he says he sent them Malachim, right? Malachim really means messengers. But some learn Malachim means actually he sent angels. They were angels in the guise of people. And Esav would have seen. He would have seen these were angels. Would have had an effect on him because, it came from Yitzhak. He came from Yitzhak. And what he saw in his house. So one explanation is Yaakov sent them in order that it should appease him. Should remember spiritual roots. Well, think about Esav. The Chidah of the great Kabbalists, many, many years ago, hundreds of years ago, said, this is clarification, right? And that is, it said, Esav was 1,000 times greater than Yaakov. Now, the question is, do we take that literally? Or is that figurative? Like, what does that mean? Certainly up until the age of Bar Mitzvah, the Medrash says you can tell the difference. They're both great. What happened after Bar Mitzvah? After Bar Mitzvah, the inclination went wild. And Yitzhak couldn't harness it in the right way for whatever reason. But even with that upbringing, even with such an upbringing, desire killed him. So you tell me, okay, he only cared about food and hunting. That's not the only thing he cared about. He cared about women also, right? They say that, before someone got married, he had relations with them before he got married. So, he did a lot of terrible things. Idolatry, another one of them. A lot of things he did. So that's why it's brought down that his head, when he's killed, when he dies, his head went into the cave of the patriarchs, not his body. Now, what happened? What's the difference? Because his mind really knew what the right thing to do was. His mind is even greater, some say, even greater than Yaakov. Okay? Can understand that to a point. What happened to his body? Body destroyed him. His body caused him to go astray in a major way. In a major, major way. Caused him to go astray. Mind-boggling. Because you're going to say, but he never got the message. Right? How did he not get the message? He grew up in the house of Isaac. You're right. Right? Or I should say Isaac and Rivka. He grew up in their house. So, at the end of the day, what did Yaakov do when he stole their birthright? He's convincing them, listen, what he needed for, God's going to demand so much of you. It's going to be so, he's speaking to his evil inclination. Speaking to his evil inclination. So what happened to his education? What happened to everything that Rivka and Yitzchak put into him? Yitzchak will give the blessing to Yaakov. Why? Sorry, to Esav. Why? Because Yaakov didn't need it. Yaakov's already sitting and learning. He's already going to be, great in his own right. So he felt that Esav needed more. He needed more. He needed to be strengthened more. He saw that in his nature. But the question remains, and that is, you grew up in such a house. How do you do all these other things? But listen, in any house today, this is thousands of years later, any house today, trying to raise kids to go in the right path, in their communities bursting by the seams all over in the ultra-Orthodox community. Very good. But there's a dropout rate. Maybe it's 10%, let's say. Why should there be a dropout rate? Because evil inclination works in many ways. Many, many ways. Today we're a much weaker generation, cream puff generation, let's say. Right? As we would say. So there's a lot of temptation. A lot of temptation. Any previous generation, a different temptation. Right? Each generation, whatever it is. But that's why we say the Torah is not inheritance. Because you see that even in the greatest of families, spiritually speaking, who says the kid's going to come out all right? We have a very strong percentage that do succeed, true. At whatever level, at least they keep Shabbos, they keep kosher, whatever. Even if they're not big rabbinic scholars, fine. Some more, some less, but there's a very high success rate. Even though we live in this messed up world. Still, you could say, well, back then, but look who his father was. Look who his mother was, true. So make no mistake, that's the power of the evil inclination. Convincing him, yeah, Torah's very hard. Other things are very hard. Yeah, I want the easy way out. I want to have fun. I want to enjoy. But look who his parents were. It doesn't matter. His parents were going to have a child it's going to come out of him, out of his brother, the Jewish people. So think about it. That evil inclination destroyed him. Totally destroyed him. That's the power. Doesn't matter who his parents are. A person's environment, you're right, 100% can destroy you. Easily. You live in a place where no Jewish community, yeah. Even in a place where there are Jews and there's a Jewish community, okay, it makes you stronger. A lot of people think like you. You have a lot of amenities. You have kashrus. You have Jewish schools. You have yeshivas, girls' schools. You have a lot of good things going on. It's true. So much Torah learning today, more than even the Second Temple time. Not the same quality by any stretch. But a lot of good things going on. But, I'll give an example. Look what happened in America. Jews came from Europe being persecuted, threw the tefillin overboard. And you have all these Jews from previous generations. Okay, they had a connection to Torah because the parents were connected to Torah. Right, my grandparents' generation, great-great-grandparents. Yeah. More than 200 years ago, 250 years ago, everyone was Orthodox. People came to America. You don't work on Saturday, you don't get paid, you don't have a job. Very, very strong test. Some people survived it, a lot of people didn't. Right? I'm not here to criticize. I'm just saying, the reality was it was too hard. They wanted their kids to grow up, different environment they grew up. Want to give them plenty of things, monetarily, very good. Destroyed them. That's another test. Wealth. They wanted their kids to be more than they were, have better life than they did. That had nothing to do with Torah mitzvahs. Maybe a smattering of it. Maybe you have a bar mitzvah. That'll be the end. That'll be the end of Jewish education. That's what happened. I mean, today's nothing to talk about. But that's how it started. So America destroyed thousands, tens of thousands of Jews assimilating on their own. No one's putting a gun to their head. Not at all. Not even close. They're doing it to themselves. Now you see what's going on. There's a lot of Jewish pride. People standing up for Judaism and this and that, or whether they keep Torah mitzvahs, they don't. They see what people are for real. Scary time. So there is what to be said. Jewish people working together, banding together. Whether religious, not religious, more religious, less religious. It's a huge thing. I made a comment, during lunch today that, my prediction, I'm still holding by it, that after all said and done, everything gets done in Gaza, let's say. How long does it take for them to protest against the government? What they were protesting before. I'm saying it's going to take 2 weeks. I think it's going to be a week, not even. I think it's going to be less than that. That's my prediction, for what it's worth. People forget. But you have tremendous achdus, tremendous togetherness amongst the Jewish people right now because of this whole tragedy. Tremendous. I don't think there's any question. I don't think there's any question at all. But, at the end of the day, you see the power of the evil inclination. Even by someone who grew up by righteous parents. That's how far the evil inclination can go. Right, Yitzhak loved Esau more, right? That's what the Torah says, but how can he love them more if he's doing all these other things, right? There's a question, Why didn't he stop from hunting? Let's say like this. Person hits a certain age. What can a parent do? What's possible for a parent to do? Right? If they're younger, this and that, you have more control. If they're older, you don't have so much control. Unless you tell me somebody, just going to leave home. Maybe life is too hard or whatever. They leave home. They just go on their own. Right? Probably not likely in most cases, depending on what's going on. Right? But at the end of the day, person's old enough to make their own decisions. How do you stop it? How do you stop it? I mean, he's older at this point. Not a kid. He's older. How are you going to stop that? Same thing. I mean, similar thing by Abraham. Abraham, does the Akedah. He binds Isaac. Abraham's 100. How old is Isaac? 37. Think a 37-year-old could have taken his father and stopped him? Could have. He didn't. He had perfect faith also. Yeah. Could it, if Abraham wanted to really do something, could, if Yitzhak wanted to stop him, could he have stopped him? He could have stopped him. Anytime you have a 100-year-old against 37-year-old should win. Right? No question. But how is he supposed to stop it? If Yitzhak's like 60 years old, that means he's like, he's 20, 25. How's he going to stop him? How's he going to stop him? Are they going to lock him in the house? How can he stop him? They can speak to him, try and influence him, tell him to remember this, that, and the other thing, give him mussar. Who says he's going to listen? But he can't stop him physically. How's he going to stop him physically? He sneaks out of the house. What are you going to do? He decides, you know what? I'm moving out. Yeah, you can try and speak to him. Good luck. You might have success, you might not. So, he is liable to a certain extent to what happens. There's a blessing that a father makes the day of his son's bar mitzvah, right, when he's called to the Torah. Blessing is Baruch Torani me oynish shelzer. Or he says, God's sort of all blessing, I should be exempt from, I'm exempt from punishment for this child. Why? Because now they're liable. They're liable for their actions. Now you're going to say, but they only get punished by the age of 20, let's say, by their sins. But the father's got an obligation, parents have an obligation to educate them the best way. Okay, you're going to send them to yeshiva, you're going to send them to Jewish school. But you have to be, as my Rebbe says many times, you have to be involved in all aspects of their education to make sure they're going in the right path. You can't just leave it up to the Rebbe and to the school. The main education they get is home. So Rosh Shlomo Sodron, known as the Maggid of Yerushalayim, right? Rosh Shlomo Sodron, a blessed memory, in Lev Shalom, book Lev Shalom, on the parsha says, if I remember correctly, when Yitzhak made that blessing, and he said, Baruch Shem Taran, and he said, now I'm exempt, he's on his own. So he wants to say that he wasn't as involved in his education as he should have been. In other words, liability on his end. It wasn't just that, he went out and did this and did that, whatever. But he wasn't as active in his education. So maybe he says many times, even if kids get married, they're out of the house, this and that, you still have an obligation to try and educate them. You got to know when not doing this and that, but he said he's still got an obligation. Doesn't stop. Doesn't stop. So if our kids go sour, God forbid, there's liability on us. You can say it's the power of the strength, the power of this, power of that. True. But the bottom line is they don't go, it's a reflection on us. They're not going in the right direction. You think, come on, but look what's going on in the world. They could have a bad friend, that this happened, that happened. You're right. A lot of things could happen. But who bears responsibility? Is a child going to bear responsibility later? Sure. 100%. They will bear responsibility, but where does it really come from? The parents. They're going to, this can happen in the best of homes. Best of homes, you can have a child that goes sour. Can happen. Not necessarily the fault of the parents. Power of the streets, other things, bad influences. But the bottom line is, parents should be liable. Should be liable. To whatever extent. It's a scary thought. If they go in the right path, we get a merit in all their mitzvahs. If they go in the wrong path, you get the opposite. And the bottom line is, where's the most education for a child coming from? Our own house. Right? Their house. You can say it's bad influence of other kids, this happened, that happened. Okay. But where's the majority education coming from? Your own house. Now, can you control other things? No. Yeah, you got to be careful who they're friends with, different things. Okay. But you know what? Sometimes you're not in control. You try and control things the best of your ability, but at the end of the day, they make their own decisions. As we always say that, a person makes the bet, they lie. You're responsible. You're responsible for what happened. Right? So, could he really stop him in physical terms? I was going to stop him. You try to educate him. Give him mussar. Try and encourage him. I don't know. A lot of things potentially could have done. But at the end of the day, person makes up his mind. They're out of the house or whatever. You can't stop them. Or if they're in the house, can't throw them out either. Right? Very, very difficult situation. Because you don't want if the person went sour, kids, a parent's kid went sour, you don't want them having influence on other kids. Sometimes it's a snowball effect. I know of a number of stories. One kid went off and took a bunch of siblings with him, as well. But you can't necessarily throw them out unless, there's negative influence, and that you need proper rabbinic guidance what to do. Can't just, throw the kid out. Same thing going to yeshiva. If causing problems in yeshiva, they want to throw them out, they have to find a place that's more suitable. Can't just throw them out. And one of the worst things to do if you have no church, you have no choice. There's a story of a great rabbi had a yeshiva. They had a student there that was going off due to the Enlightenment and all that. And and students in the yeshiva like begged not to throw him out. They know what to do. But he didn't want him to have a bad influence on everyone else. So he sent a telegram. Back then, sent a telegram to or a letter, whatever, to Chaim Brisker. More, 150 years ago, more, whatever it was. It was before telegrams, sent him a letter, whatever it was. He got a letter back. He answered him in 3 words. He asked him, what should he do? What should you do with this guy? So he said, Sagor a yeshiva miyad. Close the yeshiva immediately. Because you don't want this kid having influence on everyone else. He said, just don't throw him out. Shut it down. 100% shut it down. And he ended up going, elsewhere and starting another yeshiva with other students. You don't mess with that. That's what Rav Chaim Brisker said. You don't mess. Shut it down. He had a lot of students there. A lot of very good students there. Didn't matter. One bad egg can, turn everybody off. That's a problem. That would be that'd be a huge issue. So we're our own worst enemy. So we got to be careful over here. Right? We have to be careful over here. How we educate our kids, how we educate our students, so to speak. At the end of the day, we're responsible. We're totally responsible, for our actions. So it's interesting, whatever happens, we're responsible for our kids. You gotta say, but this happened, the other thing happened. Let's say it's even beyond your control. Let's say it's beyond your control. Beyond your control. You're still liable to a point? Sure. Big responsibility having kids. Person can't say, well, I don't know what's going to happen. I shouldn't have kids. Right? Famous story about Pirke Avos was going to die. Prophet, because he saw that a child was going to come out of him. Child's going to come out of him and, do idolatry and terrible things. They don't want to have kids. Right? So the prophet comes to him and says, you're going to die. Right? He was very sick. He said, God's going to take you. He said, what do you do wrong? You want to have kids. But he said, I saw in the future this, that. He said, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you saw in the future. You got an obligation to have children. Very good. Right? So he ended up, having children, this and that. Still what happened? He was healed or whatever. And son went off. He got Moses himself. Right? He had a son that was, was in idolatry. Happens in the best of families. Right? Best of families. So, responsibility comes on us. Totally comes on us. Somebody asks, why is the death of Rivka not mentioned? Right? Because no one would say she gave birth to such a monster. What do you mean? She had Yaakov, right? You can say the same thing about Avram. Okay, I mentioned Avram's death. He's buried in the cave of the patriarchs. You also had Yishmael. And what Yishmael is doing now. Look at the curse of Yishmael that we see. So interesting. The Torah says, first of all, remember, she overhears Isaac saying that he wants to bless Esau. So she tells Yaakov and dresses him up and all that, gives him all the savory food. She accepts responsibility for the consequence. Right? May the curse be upon me, basically. In other words, what if Yaakov says, what if he touches me and it said my skin is very smooth and Esau is, rough skinned or whatever, he'll curse me. So what does Rivka say? I'll take the curse. Just don't worry about it. I'll take the curse. Yeah. So what do we see? She gave birth to him. She's transmissional, right? She's giving over, and Yitzhak are giving over what they learned from Avram, right? He's going to be the one, pass it down, right? So to speak. Even though, she might have been right. This is what her intuition told her. Her husband is blind, right? He doesn't see what he's doing, right? The future nation is going to be a reflection of the progenitors, and one of the sons is obviously able to do that. And that's from Avram and Sarah, right? That who's going to take over is Yaakov. Right? It's going to take over. Now, Genesis chapter 35, verses 6 to 8, what does the Torah tell me? It says Yaakov came to Luz, which was in Beit El, the land of Canaan, accompanied by all his people. He built an altar, going to the place God of Beit El. For there God I appeared to him, and he fled from his brother. The boy, the nursemaid of Rivka, died there, was buried under the oak tree below Beit El, and they called the place the Oak of Tears. Now, comes along the Ramban. Nachmanides says, well, very interesting. What's going on over here? It says her nursemaid. So the question why he mentions it. Well, what's so great about her nursemaid over here that, that the Torah says that she died over here. Right, okay. Right, so the rabbis tell us what? Also refers to the Rivka. And therefore the place called the Oak of Tears. Because Yaakov cried more than the loss of his mother, right, of his righteous mother. And she sent them away, right? She sent them away because she's afraid. Esau's going to kill her. She didn't merit to see his return. Because it says, Yaakov arrived at Mamre. Where's Mamre? Kiryat Arba, to his father Yitzhak, right? Kiryat Arba is right next to Hebron, right? It's not far. It's 10 minutes away, right? So that's chapter 35, verse 27. So Rivka at this point was alive. But text doesn't say. Text doesn't say. So the Torah does not mention her death. Right? Doesn't mention. It's concealed over here. Why? Why is it concealed? She didn't have such a great end. Her trusted son, righteous son's not there. And not only that, Esau hated her for what she did. Right? Definitely hated, despised her because she's the one that came up with this plan. He didn't attend. And Yitzhak's blind. Can't go anywhere. Right? The Torah doesn't want to highlight Hittite that buried her in Machpelah. That's what the Ramban says. So, who buried her? Interesting. Yaakov's not there. Esau didn't want to be there. Right? Totally didn't want to be there. But at the end of the day, what happens? Who ends up burying her at the Cave of the Patriarchs? Hittites, of all people. So now you ask, very good, what happened over here? Look what she did. Look how she died. So again, how did Rivka act in general? Selflessness, humility, accepting her fate of being anonymous. Why? She was willing to sacrifice herself so the Jewish people could live through Yaakov. That's what she was willing to do. She was willing to give up herself, knowing that she could get cursed for the sake of the fact that Torah is going to be passed down to Yaakov and to Yaakov's kids. Right? This is what the Ramban here says. So that's what I would say. I think it's a good answer. The fact that there are consequences. There are consequences for action. Not because she gave birth to Asa. That's not in her control. Who she gives birth to. It's in her control how she educates them. Yeah, that's in her control. What happens afterwards? Ought to heavenly help, no question. But at the end of the day, she's not punished for that. First of all, she has a lot of humility, so she's sort of in the background anyway. Even though you would think it would be more glorious what the Torah is going to say. Regardless, she paid a price. She paid a price to save her son. And to give that son what he deserved. Why did Yitzhak want to give it to Esav? Okay, that's a good question. But who's the one who really deserved it? It was Yaakov. And he got what he deserved. The Jewish people came through him. And if Esav would have repented and this and that, could have come through him, but didn't. So she says to Yaakov, I'll pay the price. Do not worry what happens to me. This is what needs to be. You need to get the blessing. Esav doesn't deserve the blessing. So this is what we're going to do. And if anything happens in a negative way, I'll bear the responsibility, not you. You will not get the curse. I'll get the curse. I will take responsibility. And she does. It says the Ramban, because of that, she dies being anonymous. Being selfless. To the extent, mind-boggling. Husband can't bury her. Yaakov's not there. Esav despises her. She gets buried by the Hittites. The Hittites bury her. Mind-boggling. That's the way, righteous people end up. There are repercussions. There are repercussions. Even some minor mistake, person's very righteous, you pay in different ways. But you don't hear too much about it. You hear the fact that, she complains, she's barren. And then she gets pregnant and, the rumbling inside of her stomach was going to come out first and all that. And then she sends her beloved son away. So Esav doesn't kill him. She never sees him again. Unbelievable selfless act here. But she's doing it for the sake of the Jewish people. To perpetuate the Jewish people. That's nothing to do with, back what Esav is or what he becomes. That's not the issue. It's not the issue. She was willing to take punishment. The curse. She was willing to take the curse. Unbelievable selfless act to the point where that's what happened to her in the end. Right? So it's one explanation. Could be other explanations also. Right? That's one explanation possible what happened and why it happened. But you see, great people take risks. Or let's say better, not take risks, but the fact that on such a high level, different things going on, something minor, you make a statement. We'll see in a few weeks when Yaakov leaves Lavan. And, Lavan is like screaming at him, and why'd you leave? Why'd you take my kids? Take this. He took my idols also. He said, I didn't take your idols. He said, whoever took your idol is going to die. He didn't know Rachel took the idol. Commentaries learn, you got to be very careful what you say. Very, very careful. Right? So the question, what was going on? Simple explanation according to the Torah. Right? The Karaites will be happy. We won't quote any other sources. The Torah says, Yaakov said that whoever took the idols, they deserve to die. They should be put to death. They had no idea. He had no idea it was his wife. So simple explanation is she dies because of that. Because of what he said. I mean, there are other explanations. But without, getting into oral law, that's the main explanation. She shouldn't have, he should have been more careful what he said. And, I made a video, my YouTube channel Beyond Orthodox Conversion in Judaism, speaking of why'd she take him in the first place? Who says she has the right to? Right? That's a whole other discussion. We're not going to get into. Right? But there's also a question. You say, it's idolatry. You got an obligation. Get it out of your house, even if it doesn't belong to you, to totally destroy it. Good. Yeah. Who says she's allowed to take it? It's one thing. Her father has it. Okay, she's leaving, so I take it. He wants to have it. It's his choice. She's allowed to take it, destroy it. Or whatever, hide it, steal it. Right? That's a whole discussion of itself. But again, the idea is you got to be careful what you say. Very, very careful. He makes that statement. Technically speaking, she dies because of that. Rivka says, I'm going to take on the curse and this and that. She dies in she dies and Torah doesn't tell me directly. So there are repercussions for what we say, as we always say. You got to be careful. And someone at a very high level has to be more careful. So it has to be more careful. A lot of these things, I mean, these are good questions, right? These are definitely good questions. A lot of these things, in general, it's very hard to understand face value. I'm not saying we don't have an obligation to try. A lot of these things, you're talking about great people, we can't imagine who they are. Have to try and make sense of it somehow. But the bottom line is, these things, a lot of these stories, and how the Jewish people get built up, a lot of it is in secrecy. Face value is very hard to understand. Very, very hard to understand. I mean, a lot of the Torah is like that, but this, I think, there's so many other things going on. We mentioned before the story of Lot and his daughters, right? And you have incest, and you have Moab, from my father. Who comes from Moab? Ruth. Who comes generations later after Ruth is King David and the future Messiah. Mind-boggling. Comes from an incestuous relationship. Is that something that, logically makes sense? Doesn't logically make sense, right? Right? Definitely doesn't make sense logically. At the end of the day, there's a lot of things that Torah don't make sense. But, especially in the book of Genesis, we have to try and, and see to the best of our ability. Right? I don't think there's any question. But a lot of it's hidden in secrecy. Right? That's why I have the rabbis discussing all this. The commentaries going to town over here because, as Kaufman would say, a lot of sense doesn't make. A lot of things in Genesis. In Genesis. Like that. Whatever, it's good questions. We still have to try and dig a little bit, try and understand, what the whole point is, right? And what we're doing here and how, history works, what's going on. These are not easy things. These are, definitely not easy things. And you're talking about people we can't even imagine who they are, right? Very, very hard to understand, in a lot of ways. But, it's not a contradiction. It's not a contradiction because that's our obligation. Our obligation is to try and make heads and tails of it to the best of our ability. Does that mean we're going to get simple explanations? No. But, like anything else, you have you have Isaac who had Yishmael. You have Yitzchak that had Esau. So you see these are not simple things. And that's the whole story with the that we just read today and the blessing, right? The fact that he has to go underhandedly, so to speak, and quote unquote steal the blessing, right? Not really stealing it, but in general. Why can't you just speak to Yitzchak and say, listen, he's not the right person. Why do you think you should give it to him? He has his own reasons, okay? But why not do it that way? Why not explain it that way? Then have him try to get it, in an underhanded meaning. There are a lot of reasons. A lot of reasons. One possible reason, is the fact that, it says Yitzchak was blind and he couldn't see, whatever. But, even to say somebody like that at that level could be fooled. Or you could tell me when an evil person has something they shouldn't deserve, whatever, you try and do whatever you can to take it away from them, even in an underhanded manner. Right? Let's say an evil person had a Sefer Torah. I could probably steal it from them so they don't abuse it. Technically. If I know I'm going to get caught, I can't do it. But if they're going to abuse it, why should I try and steal it? He goes, stealing's forbidden. Not in this case. They're going to abuse it. Right? If I know for sure they're going to abuse it, which is probably the case, in different ways, they'll misuse it. So why can't I? You're going to say stealing is always forbidden. Who says, from an evil person, I can't steal from them because they're misusing a sacred object. I don't say stealing across the board in general. Right? In most cases, it probably is. But, a heretic has a Torah scroll and what they're going to do with it, potentially. Yeah, I could in theory. If I knew 100%, a person knew they would never get caught. No possible way to get caught. Yeah. Be mutter, be permissible to do. It would be permissible to do because so they don't misuse it. That'd be huge, right? So there are times you have to do underhanded things. Here in Israel, there was a time they anytime someone died, they did an autopsy. Autopsy is forbidden, right? Usually 100% is forbidden. So there were people that would go into morgue in the middle of the night, steal the body, give it a proper burial, so it wouldn't go through them. I thought he's going to put you in jail and this and that, but they're going to desecrate the body. Right? Obviously, you need big shoulders to say that's okay to do, right? But plenty of rabbis came out and said, not only permitted, you're obligated. Obligated. Right? So again, you have to know where, when, what, how, but, even someone is evil, you want to make sure they're not going to abuse it, do other things. That's not stealing. It's not even desecration of God's name. You're doing what needs to be done. But again, you have to know. Yeah, you have to have, first of all, person has to have big shoulders to be able to tell someone what to do in such a situation. You have to go to the right person to ask what to do. You can't just act on your own. Right? You can't just be a fanatic and this is you need rabbinic authority behind you. Right? But something like that, they're gonna desecrate the body, so you do what you can. Make sure they don't. According to the law, you're gonna lose. Right? So you got the law of the land, quote unquote, here. Right? In Israel. So what? You got Torah against it. You're going to fight against it. So you do whatever you can. Right? That's not forbidden. That's totally not forbidden. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. No questions. I'm going to stop here. I do this every Saturday, 2:00 Eastern time, 9:00 Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, and Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on Torah portion of the week, Q&As, ethics of our fathers, controversial issues, Book of Leviticus. Otherwise, anyone wants to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAMCOFFMAN @gmail.com, whichever good. Middle of the day or end of the day, depending where you are, and everyone have a great